It's just a huge honor for me today to be sitting in the podcast studio with Dr. Monzer Shakally. Thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh my God, he sent me a question on email, and I said, "Dude, you live in Scottsdale. Just let's if you have the question, 100 other guys have the question." I said, "Just come down here." He's a very rare cookie. He's a newly practicing dentist in Tempe, Arizona. He was born and raised in Damascus, Syria, until the age of 17 when he was exiled out of his own country and forced to become a refugee in Cairo, Egypt. How talk about post traumatic stress disorder? How messed up would that be? And look at him now. He's a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed dentist. He was later relocated to Des Moines, Iowa, where he finished his last year of high school and went on to the University of Iowa for his Bachelor's of Science in Evolutionary Biology and a minor in International Relations. He remained in Iowa City for another 4 years until he graduated with a DDS from the same school. He is currently pursuing an FAGD with over 185 CE hours after a year of practice. The CE has been in multiple areas, including Botox, oral sedation, a master's of clear aligners, implant placement, and my 30-day dental MBA, which he said I was very funny in. Dr. Shakally is passionate about organized dentistry and is a member on the Council on Government Affairs for the Arizona Dental Association. He recently was recognized as a LEAD program graduate, a program that prepares new dentists for roles in leadership profession. Well, thank you so much for coming by.
Oh,
And
it's great to see you in person.
oh, thanks, man. And you have a very old soul, man. You went through a lot early. And do you think that? I mean, obviously, that's going to prepare you to be a great leader in dentistry. I mean, you've seen enough shit to last 3 lifetimes. So I'm sure the bullshit at a Arizona dental meeting or at the ADA is going to be amateur league, playing in the playground stuff compared to what you grew up in.
I definitely enjoy, the organized aspect of dentistry and getting to know the older dentists and going through, uh, different struggles and problems that are facing the profession. But yeah, my experience in Syria has definitely shaped my beliefs on a lot of things in life, and I think what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So definitely have the mental strength to thank for that, I guess, for if anything else.
And where did you find the strength when, I mean, humans can be so insanely senseless and mad and crazy. Where did you find the strength when all the humans look like a bunch of drunk raccoons, just shooting themselves in the foot?
I mean, in Syria, it was a combination of things. I would say religion was part of it. You become religious pretty quick if you feel like you're gonna face your your death every day of the week, every time you leave your house. I would say anger. A lot of it was, seeing my friends tortured to death, seeing families disappears, and anger and revenge is a very powerful force. I would say hatred. But then mostly, honestly, was just hope that I could bring democracy to what Syria was. That one day maybe Syria could look like the U.S. So coming here and participating in different democratic processes, and I've lobbied in Congress for on behalf of immigrants here in the U.S. I've canvassed for different politicians that were running for the House, and I like that. I know people hate politics here in the U.S., but I think there's obviously the bad and the ugly about it, but that's what democracy looks like. It's people arguing and fighting. There wasn't a whole lot of arguing in Syria. There was just one side that told you what happened, or you get killed essentially.
And it's so bad in America because everybody hates politics, and so only the fringe lunatics get in. And if all the dentists, physicians, and lawyers would make it a priority, like, okay, I mean, I didn't even want to join my HOA. I mean, because they wouldn't let me put a basketball goal on my driveway, and I have 4 boys. They're telling them they can't do drugs, they can't do sex, they can't do all this stuff, but they can't put a basketball goal in their driveway. I mean, so it's tough to get involved in all that stuff.
Hmm.
You gotta,
Yeah, have tough
but
skin.
but when you don't get involved with it, you get the crazy times we live in now.
Exactly. I mean, the decisions are going to be made regardless if you're part of them or not. So, and that goes for organized dentistry as well. I mean, um, Arizona Dental Association I've been part of since I graduated and came here. Dr. Regina Cobb, I don't know if you know her. She's the executive
Absolutely.
director. She's been
She's been on
Absolutely.
the show.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
didn't know that. So she really was the one that Dr. Pauly, I don't know if you know him, he was an Iowa graduate, so he introduced me to her, and she got me involved in organized dentistry and got me on um, the Council on Government Affairs and in the LEAD program, and it's just been wonderful. I definitely intend to continue that journey with them, and I that was part of why I wanted to come on. I know that, there's quite a few different things that we're trying to do here in the state. A lot of it deals with, legislations dealing with dentistry, so I'm happy to talk about that more if you want.
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Well, so I don't know. I'm sure everybody that knows about Arizona and just the nation in general, the hygienist shortages that everybody deals with, and so the House, there as the House, voted to try to essentially allow assistants to do prophies, so supragingival calculus removal, and directed the Council on Government Affairs to try to come up with legislations that we can push to allow that because you would need to go through a Sunrise application for it. So that's kind of the biggest fight we anticipate since the Hygiene Association obviously is not gonna, they're not gonna like that.
And there's your answer. The Hygiene Association. Healthcare is a cartel. Seriously, you don't want to open this can of worms with me. That was the wrong question to ask. We should delete the opening and reshoot the. But no, because I'm a dentist, so the dentists always expect me to be on their side, and they always expect me to be their cheerleader. And when the dentists are clearly in the wrong, I stand up to them, and it's just my personality disorder. You know what I mean? Of just not knowing when to shut up. But basically, the entire healthcare is a scam. It's a cartel. When I was a little kid, after World War II, Germany and Japan were the bad guys, and they didn't let their cars in here. So GM had 50% market share, and then Ford and Chrysler had the rest. And the cars were horrible. They were expensive. They sucked. Every Saturday and Sunday, every friend I know was in some garage trying to fix something, and you knew who was good on transmissions and radiators, and because they were just crap. And they finally let competition back in, and GM went from 50% to 30% overnight, and Japan leads the way with Toyota and Honda the longest, and Toyota and Honda, that competition is what's drug Ford up to where an F-150 is a decent truck. It's a good truck, but you need competition,
Absolutely.
and when I got here in Arizona, there were Jewish dentists that were like 80. So, or maybe she was six. No, I think she was 70, 80. But they came here fleeing Nazism, and and they got here. And of course, the cartel. No, you can't practice dentistry here. You come from Germany where they make Mercedes Benz. This is the land of Chrysler. You'll have to re-go through the dental school. Like, how obscene is it that you think your dental school is superior to Germany or Japan?
Hmm.
And they're still doing it today with Mexico City. There's not a single. But anyway, they came here and they said you had to start all over, so that they couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And what a waste. And I practice in Awatukin across the street from Guadalupe. It's 15,000 Hispanics. And every 4 or 5 years, they catch a Mexican dentist sneaking in there in an apartment doing fillings on people that don't have a dentist and don't have the money and don't have access. They're illegal, whatever. And our government literally comes down and arrests them and then puts them in jail. Florida has several Russian dentists that were fleeing Putin for the last 10 years. They're in prison today. They're in prison because they came here and they say, "Well, no, we don't accept your life." So the hygiene shortage. There's only a hygiene shortage because you've gone from Ellis Island, where the only thing that made America great was 500 years of people immigrating from Syria and Ireland and everybody around the world, and they the Bolshevik Revolution, they stopped that. And today, I would go down to the Arizona State Board Dental Examiner, and I would tell them, I'd say, so you're saying zero health care in Guadalupe is better for God's children than not having an American dentist? I mean, you're either gonna, go to the University of Iowa and do that filling right, or nobody's getting a filling in this entire town of Guadalupe. And once they break the cartel, and they'll do, and then here's what's even grosser is these false intellectuals like Bernie Sanders and AOC who think they're so smart. It's like, so they destroyed the whole system, and now they're saying, oh, well, now we need to take more of your money and we need to be in charge of it. Well, why would we give the system to the people that broke it? If you read The Rise and Fall, the Rise of American Healthcare System by Paul Starr, I think it was 1984, got a Pulitzer Prize in it. I reread the book every 10 years. It's such an amazing read about how the government decided that they were going to put a state board exam in all 50 states, and no medical school or dental school could be licensed, open. Nobody could practice unless you did. They bankrupted 90% of everyone. And at that time, and in the U.S. government, they're only doing it to help you. I mean, you follow every time the U.S. military has sent food in to a famine relief area. Funny how the entire country's messed up 10 years later. It's a military base. They're meddling in the politics. And it's always disguised that, oh, you're starving. We need to send you help. And then the help, it's an octopus, strangles you and messes up everything. And if AOC and Bernie Sanders really care about anything to do with healthcare, just eliminate the cartel. Say, if I'm a consumer, I can go to you and I can look on the state board and I'll say, well, are you certified by and they say, yeah, he went to a U.S. school, he took national boards 1, 2, whatever, and he charges $250 for a filling. Okay, well, I'm going to, Mike Rafonso over here, and he went to Mexico City, and he only charges $20 for a filling. If you go down to Yuma, have you ever been down to Yuma?
Mm-hmm.
And have you gone to Molar City? You cross Yuma into Mexico, and there's like 200, I don't know, 100, the whole city, they call it Molar Town.
I can't leave the U.S., unfortunately.
Oh, yeah. And they call it Molar Town, and all the patients look like us. And we've all driven from Phoenix 3 hours to go to Mexican dentist, and the price is 1/3 of the price. And I sat there. They got their FAGD. They got their, the guy I was talking to, I got my fellowship in the Mission Institute. Well, so did he. I mean, it's not like Mexico City's not a civilization. I mean, how obscene is it?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said one time that you have to have some sort of a different standard of care for the private practice versus a place that's taking HMOs versus a place that is a community health center. If you maintain the same standard of care for the dentist that needs to see 20 patients, a day versus the one that only needs to see 5, there's no way these standards of care are going to be exactly the same.
Well, markets always differentiate on price. I mean, you got a home. You can live in your car. You can have a trailer, a fifth wheel, manufactured home, apartment, condo, all the way to you're in Scottsdale. You probably have a 15-bedroom, 9-car garage for all your Ferraris. I mean, markets always segment. I have no problem. And I see a huge market for rich Americans saying, no, I want someone that was trained in the United States. I want this whole package, and I'm willing to pay, $1,000, $1,500 for a root canal.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. This is America. Go buy a Porsche. I don't give a shit. But for the same people to say, but there will be no used cars sold in America. And when I go down that Mexican border, when I was 10 and I go down to Douglas on vacation, and we went to Tijuana, in Douglas, it was just a copper wire that the copper companies laid there because all the school kids wanted to know when they actually crossed into Mexico. And then Ronald Reagan came and started all this racism stuff, build a wall and everything. And you go down there and I look, and I go down Douglas all the time, and it's 4,000 feet. I just love it up there. And the other place, or if I go north, I go to Seligman. And you go down there and you look at all those, they're all from India, Pakistan, Middle East. I talk to them. They're dentists, they're physicians, they're mechanical engineers. Then I go talk to this plant here where they're building that Taiwan semi. They're trying to move it because China's saying they're going to invade Taiwan for that factory. And I've been practicing here for 35 years. I got tons of friends in Intel. They said, I don't care if they open it tomorrow. America doesn't have enough PhDs and all the requirements to even run that thing. In fact, they're having massive problems with construction because they got workers. Every place you go is a help wanted ad. Every place is hiring. The labor market's still going. But what's stifling is you close down Ellis Island. There's no workers. And Ronald Reagan in 82, when I was a sophomore at Creighton, he went back to Paul Volcker and he said, "Man, this economy is horrible. Is there anything I can do?" He said, "Yeah, naturalize all your illegals." And so Reagan did, and it was 3 million. He's a
Mm-hmm.
Republican, and today those illegals are 10 million. But if you naturalize those 10 million illegals, a bunch of hygienists are in there, and they're hygienists from France and Poland and Syria and Russia. They're just illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't buy into any of the labor stuff. I don't buy into the cartel. And I was a proud member of the ADA, and I still am. But I haven't really approved of any legislation they've tried to pass because it's always the dentists want to get richer, and then you look at the dentists on Dental Town, and they're just like totally mad at all these DSOs, and they're like, okay, so maybe a DSO isn't for a dentist or a dentist's children or grandchildren, but there's a big middle class out here, and look what DSOs brought competition. I I practice as long as you are alive. Before you were born, there was no 7 day a week dental office in
Mm-hmm.
Arizona. Guess what happened when the DSOs got here? The consumer finally could have a dental office open 7 days a week, 7 to 7.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that might not be a big deal to a dentist who makes all of his appointments for his family's doctors weeks in advance. But if you're middle class or you're poor, sometimes your only option is an emergency room. These hospitals, they get real mad at the emergency room. It's like, dude, I didn't even know I was going to McDonald's till 3 minutes ago, and now I'm flipping a U-turn to go back in there. But you want him to plan pain, suffering, appendicitis, and you go in those nursing homes and you go in these emergency rooms. That's another joke of a story. If I was a DSO, they say about 6 to 10% are odontogenic in origin at these Arizona deals. They don't have a dentist in there. I mean, if I was going to start a DSO, I would start. And I always saw this when I went to Asia. Asia, I love seeing because Sapien, same exact mind. I mean, but I like the way, like I like architecture just because I like the way to see how every different country makes a toilet different, a window different. I mean, you think a toilet, a shitter, we'd all agree on one
Mm-hmm.
model? No. And dentistry is the same way. And in Asia, I saw it in Singapore, Malaysia, Cambodia, Vietnam, where they have dental hospitals, and you have all the specialties, and you go up there, and the bottom 4 or 5 floors are general dentistry, and then it's oral surgery,
Mm-hmm.
pediatric, endo, perio, pros, all the way up, and
Yeah,
and
something
and
like that would be cool here. Is just you don't have the population density to support it. I don't think.
oh yeah, because all the cities I saw them in were all in cities of about 1 million,
Yeah.
and the Phoenix Metro is 4 billion. And man, right where the 60 meets the I-10, you had some 15-story buildings, a dental hospital. Oh, everybody would go there. I mean, they would just go there, and you could have the full deal. But if you had, but right now you couldn't open it because, like right now, the cartel, there's so few seats in oral surgery that when you get out of oral surgery, your signing bonus for a DSO is probably going to be 250 to 500, and your salary is probably going to be 400 plus. So I mean, they get it. Could you imagine graduating from oral surgery and the supply and demand is so skewed that you could get a $400,000 signing bonus and make 400,000 a year salary plus incentives? You know how many oral surgeons are down there on the southern wall trying to get in from Pakistan and India? And look at Indian dentists. When you apply to a dental school in America, most people apply to multiple schools, but if you just take student per seat, it's about 4 to 1. Go to India. Some of those dental schools get
Oh yeah, way more
50,000
competitive.
applications. I mean, my dentist friends in India tell me if they would have made a B in the third grade,
Mm.
they wouldn't be a dentist.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then Americans are like, well, I don't want some dentist from India. I want one from Kansas.
Mm,
Like, well, why? You should want one from India.
yeah, I I agree with you on the DSOs. I feel like especially in Iowa, your kind of DSOs are demonized to a certain extent just because it's a rural environment. It's still private practice heavily. And so when I came out, I was very much against DSOs. I wanted to be my own private practice owner. Uh, Obviously, moving from Iowa, I had to take what came my way. So Pacific was one of the few that was easy to hire and paid well. Worked with them for 6 months and decided that that market segment, the HMO segment is just not for me. It was
HMO. So Pacific. I don't think Pacific takes HMO. You mean
there.
DSO?
Pacific Dental is very HMO heavy, at least the office I worked at.
The capitation?
Yep. So
Oh,
you're
I was not.
given
I was
the
not.
$10 or however much per month per patient, and then most of the treatments are very cheap. So
The upsells the whole game.
the whole game is to kind of upsell instead of it being a MO composite. Now it's an inlay from CEREC that costs $400. Um, Everything is an onlay. It was just very different than what I wanted, and it was very much you had to get in and get out as soon as possible. It wasn't the kind of you also they since it's an HMO, they prefer to keep the heavy procedures with the specialists. So even a number 8 that you've been doing since you were in D2 D3 year, um, they prefer that you send it to the endodontist because from a profit point of view, it's just a lot better for them.
Well, and that is and that's something that's something that is really serious and I think fixable. Number one is so America has 1 million MDs and 1 million attorneys and about 200,000 dentists, right? And the lawyers, they extract about $1 trillion, and that's not even their costs. It's all the regulation bullshit leaving behind. So if I do a root canal on you and you call an attorney, if I'm a general dentist, what they say is, okay, we'll file a board complaint and try to get a board complaint against you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now if I'm an endodontist, they won't play because the endodontist they know they're not going to beat an endodontist. The endodontist is the god of the deal. So this is what the DSOs have figured out, and they've all been on this program. I mean, I think Pacific, all of them, that if I do a root canal, and these are just general numbers, the insurance company give me 1,000, and they'll pay me 25%. But if an endodontist does it, the insurance pay them 1,500. And then they'll pay them, 40% or 50%. Well, 50% of 1,500 is 750. And so they get 750 on that. Well, they gave me 1,000. If I get 1,000 insurance and they can pay me 25, the 750 is the same.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm a DSO, if I have the endodontist do it, I'm still getting the same 750, but I don't have any legal problems. And implant failure is even worse.
Yeah.
And so you get some young kid out of school, you send him through 100-hour maxi implant course, whatever. I don't care who teaches the course. I don't care what you learn. The first 10 implant cases a dental associate does out of school in your practice for the last 100 years, is going to fail. Half of them are going to fail. Well, so that guy placed an implant in a crown and you had your little fee, but now it failed and you got to go pay a periodontist, or they went to a periodontist or whatever, and now you're going to write that guy a check for $5,000 to redo it. It's just not profitable.
Mm-hmm.
So the DSOs, after refunding and paying specialists to fix that stuff, and the fact that the insurance companies give such higher fees to the periodontist and oral surgeon, it makes so it's a conjunction between and I'll tell you who's the genius of Delta Dental is actually Rick Workman of Heartland. There is a big reason that guy was the first guy to get to 1,000 offices, the first guy to get to 2,000 offices, and the first billionaire in dentistry. He saw the details in Delta, and he goes in there and arm wrestles them. And he arm wrestles them, and because you got the third party payment, the legal system, the board system. Yeah, general dentists should not do molar endo and implants. You can't hire them employees. And the other thing about the employees is kind of tough is like it's kind of natural selection. So, natural selection, the people that come out of school and start their own practice, that's a very different beast, especially if he's like you with $375,000 in student loans, married. Do you have a kid?
Mm-mm.
Well, at least part. And so you're married, you got 375,000, you're so focused versus come out of dental school, no debt, daddy paid for it all, and you're single. My God, you're always trying to cancel your 4 o'clock patient, hit the bars early by 5, but you hire the Mormon kid who's married and got 3, 4 kids at home and $500,000 student loans. He comes to work early. He'll take a root canal during lunch. And right when you're ready to close the door, if a toothache walks in, he'll stay there 2 hours, do the root canal, build up and crown. I mean, so incentives matter.
It seems like the student loan issue has been improved a little bit. So for me, I wasn't a citizen during my dental school, so I couldn't apply to any federal loans. All my loans were private at the time. There was a couple
Heal
banks.
loans,
Huh?
heal loans. Was that the private ones?
No, it was Citizens Bank.
Citizens Bank.
Yep. So they were one of the few that would give me a loan because I wasn't even a green card holder at the time. It was a temporary protected status is what it's called. So anyways, they gave me loans, but then the pandemic hit. And for everybody else in my class, there was no interest accruing for 3 years, and there was no payment for 2 years after dental school versus me where I was getting that basically $50,000 extra payment. No, so I started repaying that loan right away. It was 345, I believe, when I refinanced. Um, but it was incorporated into my budget from the get-go. So every month, 2,540 comes out of my paycheck into loans. And honestly, it's fine. I mean, I get paid enough to be comfortable with that. It would be nice to not have that payment, but it's the cost of doing business. Other options would be that I didn't have any other options. There was nobody that was going to pay for school. So, people complain about loans all the time, which I get, but in other parts of the world, there isn't loans for you to take. Anyways, now that they have quite a few programs now, the pay as you earn, it seems like, is a good one. My friend that went to the same school, he's in the same, he works, practices here in Phoenix. He made the pay as you earn that you pay $750 a month, essentially. So there's different ways that seems like this is the student loan issue has definitely reached the maximum it could be at, and now there's actually, political moves to try to get it somewhat under wraps.
Well, the schools, and I watch two private schools here, and I know the deans, I know the
Hmm.
founders, and they both told me that what blew their mind is you could raise tuition $10,000 a year and not even have a dent in your applications.
Hmm.
So the demand for dental school, med school, law school is so high. Incentives matter. They have no incentive. Heartland, Midwestern, and in
AT still.
AT still, they could raise their tuition to 150,000 a year and fill the class.
Mhm. Yeah, I was accepted actually at Midwestern and decided not to come because Iowa was so much cheaper. So
Yeah, same here. I got accepted to Creighton and went to Kansas City because it was half the price.
yeah, so there's definitely, you know, decisions that you have to take at some point and live with the consequences. If you decide to go to a school that was twice as expensive because the weather was good there, then you have to deal with the consequences. You have to accept it. You can't just keep complaining about the.
Speaking of good weather, a lot of people, they really want to be an endodontist. And there was a guy in Dillontown the other day to us that he's 4 years out of school and he still didn't get accepted. He's just crushed. It's like look at the blinders on that. I mean, what does he think? The United States of America is the only country on Earth? I mean, only 4% of the population of Earth lives here. And I know people, I just love innovators, who said, screw it. And they went down to Dominican Republic or Aruba or, somewhere in the Caribbean and got their oral surgery deal. Well, when you come and apply for your Arizona State Board of Dental Examiners license, I mean, they don't care where you came from. You know what I mean? And so a lot of people that don't get accepted to the limited cartel, because the first thing cartels are going to do is limit the supply and demand.
Mhm.
And the reason you have to be in the top of your class and to get into these programs, that's how cartels work. And they always do it. Well, we want the quality. They're always doing it to protect you. And then when you say, okay, but America has 15,000 towns that doesn't have one specialty in the ADA, not one oral surgeon, orthodontist, endodontist, and then we would tell the dean that it's like these kids need to be graduating doing Invisalign ortho cases. Well, I think if you want to do an ortho, you should go to ortho school because they have an ortho school.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, 15,000 towns don't have an orthodontist, and your little doctors are going to go in that town. So what up? And then they just smile, which is just that dumb look on their face, which
That
is
that is one thing I've noticed about dentists similar to me that have graduated from AT Still and Midwestern, since they don't have any of the specialties. The dentists there graduate with a lot more experience than somebody like me at Iowa, where we weren't allowed to do any ortho. We weren't allowed to do any second molar endo. We weren't allowed to do third molar extractions. Versus, the people that are graduating from Midwestern have done quite a bit of those.
Yeah, these problems are so complex. But back to the hygiene shortage, I remember the question on the board. I remember when I went down there, and the first guy with Delta, I loved him. His name was Ed Judd. He was from Missouri, and he was a real human. And I'm called him up, and I told him I wanted to buy him lunch, and he said, "Why do you want to buy me lunch?" And I said, "Well." I said, I've only been open 4 months. I closed out my year's book, and guess who gave me the most money of anybody,
Mm.
period? Delta Dental of Arizona. And I said, I want to take you to lunch and and show my appreciation. And then we got a relationship going, and I told him, I said, Ed, you know what I don't understand about you? I said, my hygienist went $40 an hour. Now it's $50 an hour. And I said, and you give me basically like $60 for, I'm paying them 50 an hour and you give me 60. I said, but then I'll go in the room and pop out 4 wisdom teeth. You give me 250 a piece. I said, I got what I got? 4 carpals, a Novocaine, and reusable elevator. I said, I don't get a cost. So he had my accounting team, my Lori, and my team went down there and showed him all of our books. This is back before laptops, back on the pegboard. And we'd have these discussions. I said, man, you pay me. I don't need $1,000 for a denture, 1,000 for a crown, 1,000. I mean, you give me all these big chunks of thousands, but what I'm mostly doing is cleanings, exams, x-rays, and fillings, and I'm losing money on all of those.
Mhm.
So I said, so Ed, what you do, and then when I got my MBA at ASU, I mean, I was sitting there in my class where 4 guys from big hospitals out here, and they say, we same thing in healthcare. We said we lose money on everything, but if as long as we do $300,000 cap, like Medicaid and Medicare will give you 100,000 for a coronary artery bypass graft, a cabbage, and he said if we do 3 a day, we can pay all our bills. But if we don't do 3 a day and we only do 2, hopefully when we have some $50,000 colon cancer, I mean, it's like
Just all treatment based.
so will they give them these massive chunks for, a bypass, and then they give you, $12 for an exam. So I was trying to get Ed to say, Ed, we need to pay attention to costs. And I said, I just want to break. I don't want to sell anything at a loss. I don't want to have a loss later. In fact, they're illegal in grocery stores. Like if grocery stores started giving away free milk and bread, they'd shut them down because you'd go there for the free milk and bread, and then they'd raise the price on everything else. And then the guy across the street selling milk and bread. So selling something at a loss is illegal because the big guys, and that's how Rockefeller would do it. So Rockefeller would, he'd say, I want to buy your railroad company. And you'd say no. And he knew that you needed $1 per carry for whatever to break even. So then he'd lower his price to 50 cents. And then you'd eventually go under because you can't lower yours to 50 cents. And then as soon as you were gone, he'd raise his back up even higher.
Mhm.
And so these are all simple games. So I think that but you said something very interesting, and I've said this all the time. Ed was very skeptical of wanting to get to know me, and I was straight out of school. I mean, I had 4-month-old dentist. I didn't have any website or magazine or anything, and he says that he would show me. We developed a friendship, and he would show me like he'd give you like all this money every month, and then he'd deny like something like an implant. And then he'd show me the letters these dentists write him. It's blankety blank, blank, blanks, like, and like you're talking about, I asked, how do these people kill each other in war? Well, they don't see them as humans.
Mhm.
And I said about the DSOs, he said they demonize. Yeah, you can always see when there's no intellectual argument because I have to demonize you, I have to name call you. I can't just talk about, the fact that I'm paying the hygienist $50 to do a $60 cleaning in a facility that has 2/3 overhead.
Mhm.
That simple math just doesn't add up, and I'd like to fix that. And these DSOs, like there's like you see these dentists that lecture and they do all these full mouth rehabs. Well, guess who paid for all those full mouth rehabs? The dentist in the audience. I mean, when a successful dentist needs their whole mouth redone, they're going to go to Bill Dickerson, or they're going to go to Carl Mish, or they're going to go to the greatest. They'll pay cash and all that stuff. But this country's got 330 million people, and there's 150 million people that don't have money for Bill Dickerson to do their veneers or Carl Mish to place their implant. And so there's just so yeah, and they demonize the DSOs and all that kind of stuff, and it's not about demons; it's about price elasticity. Price has a very elastic effect on demand, and once the filling gets over $25, it's a shutdown for at least 50 million Americans. It's come to a stop. And I'll give you this is too much information, too personal, but to show you what a scam Americans healthcare is. I just had so I had my tonsils and adenoids out when I was a baby. I had a vasectomy out after my fourth boy, and I just had my I think it's my only other surgery. I had a abdominal hernia. I was doing squats with my young boy, and anyway, I was doing it wrong and I was bouncing and everything, but I got a little tear. And so I had to go in there and they just did a little hernia repair. I mean, it's basically you tear your fascia.
Hmm.
So you basically got to make an incision and put some stitches, but now they do it all. Guess what my co-payment was for a hernia repair? The co-payment,
$1,000.
4,900.
Oh wow.
So I got on the internet and said, well, how much is it if I just paid cash in Denmark? I can't find another country where the total cost is 4,900. But in this scam of a country, it's 4,900 is your co-payment. And America, and there's going to be a day of reckoning, and you can't raise taxes and pay for it because basically the 20 democracies have shown that you can only raise taxes this much. And then they went out there and said, well, we'll just borrow the rest. And they've been borrowing the rest. They got about $100 trillion of global deficit, 3 trillion of it's just right here. And it was about a year ago where England got a new government and they did the typical Western democracy thing. We're going to cut taxes on the wealthy and increase spending with borrowed money. And the bond market didn't buy their bonds. And they had to throw out the prime minister. She was the shortest running. Remember that whole deal?
Theresa May.
Yeah. And they had to get rid of her and they had to cancel everything. And that's what's going on in the bond market right now. The reason you have such a high inverse kill is because America is just telling the bond market, yeah, we're not going to raise taxes. We're not going to cut spending. We're going to print $2 trillion a year of debt. And the Fed and the Treasury are in cahoots on it. And the bond market's saying, I don't know. I don't know. And now we have a government without even a speaker. It's just, these are the worst of times I've seen in 61 years between Russia and Ukraine, Hamas, Israel, China, Taiwan. I mean, this is really challenging times. And what a horrible time for the United States to just be so polarized and they demonize each other. And just like you're talking about, and these are just rough times. They'll pass. And the one thing I notice I'm lecturing, I noticed this way back in the start. You grow up in your bubble in America and you think we're having these issues. And then you start zigzagging all across the world. I mean, every weekend I was going somewhere. And you realize the whole herd is the same. The whole thing swings to the left and peace and to the right and anarchy. But the whole tribe of 8 billion people, I mean, they don't live in the oceans. They don't live in Antarctica. They only live on like 30% of the surface of the earth is, I mean, is land. And of that land, they only live on like 30% of that surface. They're all the same. And so like so when you see shit going down in, Brazil, India, China, whatever, the herd is they're either really upset, and they're pissed off and they're mad, or they're happy and they're rejoicing and they just kind of oscillate like that. And it really comes down to leadership. It's so easy to start name calling and demonize someone and get them all riled up and want to kill someone. That is so easy to do to a human Homo sapien. But to try to appeal to the better side of them and get them to have empathy and all that kind of stuff, it's a very hard task.
Mm-hmm.
And when you we're really in a pickle right now. The whole planet's in a big pickle. It'd be interesting how this ends.
Still, I mean, hard times make for strong people. Strong people make for good times. I
A
think maybe,
cycle.
yeah, it's a cycle. I mean, I think Americans are definitely, there's no way around this. Americans are entitled and they think they deserve things that maybe they don't necessarily earn.
They want things they're not willing to pay for.
Yeah.
Go look at all the bond all the proposals that they give. I read some the other day, but like California, they're always having Proposition 109. Every one of them is to cut taxes, cut real estate taxes, or to buy something unfunded. They never say, oh, we want you to raise our taxes. They'll say, oh, we want you to borrow money. We want you to have a bond issuance. You want us to raise a 30-year bond to remodel an elementary school that your kid goes to? Hey, I got a grand idea.
Mhm.
Why don't you just pay for the remodel? Why don't you raise the tuition, raise the money? But no, they just they say they want something, but they don't want to pay. They don't want to have any skin in the game. And that's a great thing that young dentists have to learn is that, when they have insurance, you can tell them, okay, your insurance, okay, this is going to cost $1 and your insurance pays 50 cents, but you owe 50 cents. So I need your 50 cents up front, and then I'll do this and I'll bill the insurance and I'll be responsible for that if they don't pay or whatever. I'll play all the insurance games because my girl's been doing this forever and it's a game, but I don't want to do a predetermination to lock in guaranteed because then you're hot. You're a human. You didn't even know you were going to eat a Snickers bar until you were checking out at the line and you saw the little Snickers bar and you grabbed it and there are all these impulsive buys and it's like you're hot. You're in the chair. Same day dentistry is the biggest message you could give these people. I mean, this person hasn't been to this in 5 years, and you're gonna schedule them for another appointment to come back and get all this. No, they come in today. They got a toothache. They whatever. But just pile them in. And if the dentist is married with kids and has student loan debts, you can work your schedule. You can catch up during the hour lunch. You can catch up at the end of the day. And you can
Mhm.
just work your ass off. One of my mind checks that's very biased about dentists is so for 30 years, I've been crashing in on dental offices. It's funny when I go to any country. I remember the wife and kids always want to go to here, go shop there, and I'd see dentista. I'm like, I'm gonna be over there, and they just look like, seriously, you're on big. It's like, yeah, and I go in there. Every dental office you ever walk into in your life, guess where the dentist? Guess where every dentist is?
Right up front.
No, they're back in their private office with the door shut. You never see them working. I mean, you almost never ever see a dentist working. And then you go into a dental office where they're doing same day dentistry and they're going from room to room. You won't see them sterilize instruments. They'll go back and sit in their room and shut the door because it'll take the assistants 15, 20 minutes to break down a room, set up a next room where I just go in the sterilization, get a BOE, basic exam, explore, whatever, put on the deal. And I'd go up there and I'd say, and I'd ask permission. I'd say, to my staff, can I go get the next patient? I mean, I don't want to go sit in my office, but
Mhm.
dentists, they're entitled, they're lazy, and I mean, I own Dental Town. I mean, I risk big backlash from dentists saying I hate art. He said I'm lazy. No, I said you're damn lazy. And then like a root canal. It seems like the only reason they went to dental school is to think of 4 reasons why they shouldn't do it and refer it. Well, it's kind of calcified. I can't see the canal. My rule of thumb is, and all they do is write referral slips. I'm like, you couldn't have, I mean, the endodontist had to do his first root canal. The endodontist, your first is your worst. Your first 100 suck. You're not going to master anything for 10 years. I don't care if it's playing the piano or doing root canals or implants. And then the thing about dentistry is there's so many things to master. I mean, look at the 12 specialty oral surgery. I mean, look at implants with me. I mean, I quit placing implants because I had fallen way too far behind on bone grafting.
Mhm.
And then you got to stay on top of endo, perio, pediatric dentist. Look at silver diamine fluoride. Just that'll blow your mind. And that's just pediatric dentistry for the little munchkins and ortho. I mean, I was trained on fixed wire, Brock Rondeau, Richard Litt. Now it's all Invisalign.
Mhm.
Dental anesthesiology. That's where. Well, I was on the dental malpractice board. I mean, anytime you get a claim for $1 million or more, guess what they all have in
Yeah,
common?
the IV.
They have an IV in their arm. Don't do it. Don't don't do it. Get an
CRNA
anesthesiologist.
or
I mean, I remember when I had my fourth baby and the wife had the ex had the first three naturally, and she was losing on the fourth. I said, just get a damn epidural. And you can't get an epidural. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. The guy, he sends out a text. That was back when they had Motorola pagers. That guy was there in 5 minutes and said, where the hell were you? He says, I just sat at the Waffle House waiting for a page. And but that guy, that's all he does. You don't do anesthesia. And here's another bias. It is against the law in every hospital in America to do the anesthesia and the surgery. You can't do the bypass and the
Mm-hmm.
anesthesia. It's against law. Where's the only place that legal?
Dentistry.
Dentistry.
Yeah, and
And who
I've
made
heard
that happen? The oral surgeons.
yeah, I've heard you make this argument before, and I wasn't sure if I was on board completely because uh, in dental school, my oral surgeons would do the IV sedation and do the extractions. I always thought it was fine. I took your advice to my neighbor is Dr. Waring, the periodontist, which
Yeah.
he actually told me to say
Mark.
hi to you.
Love Mark.
So I've been using him. I just instead of paying for the maxi course or the implant pathway, I just been going shadowing him whenever he has a big implant surgery and learning from him directly. But anyways, he doesn't do his IV sedations either. So I went and shadowed him last Wednesday doing an all-on-4 surgery. So extracting all the top teeth and putting 4 implants and then doing 4 individual implants on the bottom. And he had a CRNA. And I saw the difference in terms of attention to the patient that he was able to have versus when the oral surgeon was doing the IV sedation. So I'm totally on board now with that. I'm not really, I do a lot of oral minimal sedation. So usually Valium the night before and then triazolam the day of with nitrous. I do it in a way that doesn't even require a permit here in the state of Arizona. You just keep it under the maximum amount and you don't double dose or give them multiple medications the day of. It seems to do the trick for most patients.
A lot of dentists that do this successfully, they have the anesthesiologist and do the finance for the patients direct. I mean, that's between the patient. It's like I'm not. You're not going to pay me, and then I'm going to hire an anesthesiologist.
You just pay them
You pay
directly.
the anesthesiologist, and that's the better way to go with lab too. That's a thing I would always do with labs. I mean, yeah, I'll pay the lab bill on a crown or a 3 unit bridge or whatever, but no, we're going to do this big old case, and we tell them that you'll be responsible for your lab bill because I can use a very low cost lab. I can find a Southwest Airlines, and I can find a Learjet. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's up to you, but. Here's a lab I'd recommend, but this is a big case, and I recommend that you go down there because I wouldn't want to make all your teeth and never even seen you.
Mm-hmm.
And all I get is a script that says A1. I mean, but if you go down there and maybe he'll do the wax try-in or whatever he'll look at, but it's one way to shift a $5,000 lab bill on a big case to the lab man, and it gets you using your local labs.
Mm-hmm.
And the same with anesthesiologists. I just hand them a deal. Say if you're afraid, and what I liked about the anesthesiologists is they all had one thing in common. They always came back and said, "My God, if you're going to put me to sleep, do it all."
Mm.
And I remember some cases I just couldn't do. It's like, well, I can't go in there and do 4 molar root canals before I do 12 fillings. So that was where group practice was nice, where you could have, you could have. I remember we'd break it up and say, okay, we're gonna each do a molar, and then I'll do the fillings on the right. But we'd break up the case because I
Mm.
mean, it's just. Can you imagine going in there with someone to sleep and doing 4 molar root canals, 4 crowns, 12 fillings? I mean, it's just too much.
Yeah, I haven't
Uh,
done anything that big yet, but
but and I'll say something about the anesthesiology. Obviously, it's changed a lot since I've been there. But again, I keep seeing these claims, and then when it's bad, talk about demonizing. In Arizona, every time a board certified pediatric dentist and a board certified anesthesiology, every time the kid doesn't wake up because it was having 16 fillings, the media is never going to ask, oh, why did a 3 year old need 16 cavities and 4 root canals? Oh, no one's thinking about that. They're just thinking about these two rich guys killed a baby in a hospital, and it's millions of dollars.
Mhm.
And it's
That's another thing that the board is, ASDA and Bodex are trying to tackle is trying to figure out a way to connect the anesthesia permits both to the dentist and to the anesthesia provider because there was a cases in Yuma recently that was highlighted with there was an article about children dying and it was
that was the one I was talking about.
yeah it was one CRNA that was involved in both the deaths and she essentially got a slap on the wrist for what she did versus the dentist that lost his license. So the Bodex is trying to come up with a way to connect the 1304 permit, the IV sedation permit, where it's only connected to the anesthesia provider and not to
Well,
the
I always
dentist.
try to do the math on the whole unit. So I thought to myself, okay, if I get easy math, $1,000, pull 4 wisdom teeth, and I pull one set every Friday from age 25 to 65 and retire 40 years, but I start putting them all under, and one of them dies. How much does that one die cost? $1 million. And the other thing I noticed is that when a dentist does lose a patient, like I had a really close friend lose a patient because he did a root canal on an incisor, and he didn't put antibiotics.
See, I've heard you saying this story before. I've never learned that before.
They call this the Bermuda Triangle. The valves in the vein go straight back into the brain without any valves. And he did a root canal on one of the incisors. And the next day, the patient wasn't feeling good, and he went to the hospital, and he died of a brain infection. And they got him saying that, that because of these veins, he's just had a script. If he would have wrote him a script for Pen BK, he'd been off. But it was a long trial. It was a very long trial, and he lost, and he never smiled about dentistry again. And then, like, out of nowhere, like 3, 4 years later, he dies of like stomach cancer, which I think it just stress just
Hmm.
killed him. But I know that Kyle's smart, and that I guess they listen to podcasts more if they're shorter than longer, and we're at an hour. Um,
Wow, time
I could talk.
flies.
I could talk to you for 40 days and 40 nights. In fact, you can always come back. I mean, seriously. I think you're a cool dude. But is there any other question you had before?
Questions. I would say, my advice to younger dentists is to find, I mean, right when you come out of school, you're probably gonna have to do everything and get good at everything, but quickly find whichever side you like more, and start to focus on it. Because otherwise, you're gonna be just a jack of all trade, master of none.
And I usually see them. I usually see the first fork in the road is blood and guts are soft and pretty. They either go down bleaching, bonding, veneers, and
Invisalign.
Invisalign, or they go down root canals and implants. And I mean, you both are gonna make big money, but good God, I mean, when someone comes in with a toothache, they're paying today, and if you
Hmm.
can pull that tooth and do an implant, bone graft, and a crown, wow. If you can do a root canal, build up a crown, wow. If you can build up a big ortho practice, that's great. But general dentists are spending about. When I got out of school, there was no advertising to speak of, and right now it's the general dentists are doing about 3%, and the orthodontists are doing about 6%. So you go down the Invisalign deal, you're competing with the big boys. They're specialists, and they spend a lot of money on advertising. But usually it separates blood and guts or soft and pretty.
I'm on the Invisalign route.
You're on the Invisalign
Yeah.
route. Why would someone with hair as good as you need to straighten their teeth?
It sells. It
Oh
sells.
yeah, yeah,
It
absolutely.
doesn't. My teeth are already straight. It's just easier to show the patient this is what it looks like. This is what bones will look like.
And then your staff wearing it.
Yeah, the staff. Everybody in the office has to have Invisalign at some point.
Yeah. Well, man, thanks for coming.
Oh, thank you for
And sorry about
taking
your
me.
journey, man. I might feel like I have a life of lush compared to what you were thrown in.
I'm not sorry. It is what it is. Made me the man I am.
And and last question, do you still have residual anger management issues, or were you able to get rid of all that?
No,
Or
no.
is that what you do in the gym every day?
That's.
Do you think the gym every day is letting out those anger demons
I'm a
from?
very calm person, so probably helps.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right, my man. Well, good at you, man. It was an honor
Thank
to
you.
podcast you. It
Yeah,
really
thank
was.
you.